Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where everyday pocket change transforms into life-changing treasure, and today we're diving into a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of Americans have held it, spent it, and never looked twice. But here's the twist: this little piece of metal, this simple dime from 2002, could be worth a staggering $55 million. Yes, you heard that right, $55 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. Now, before we reveal exactly what makes this particular Roosevelt dime so incredibly valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't just about one coin, because after we uncover the secrets of this 2002 treasure, we're going to explore 3 more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more, including one that could make the $55 million look like pocket change. So make absolutely sure you stick around until the very end, because the final coin we'll discuss might just be hiding in your change jar right now, and missing it could be the most expensive mistake of your entire life. The 2002 P Roosevelt dime was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility with a legendary history dating back to 1792, making it the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States, and in 2002, this mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of dimes for everyday circulation across America. Most of these coins were absolutely ordinary, perfect strikes that went into cash registers, piggy banks, and vending machines without a second thought, but somewhere in that massive production run, something extraordinary happened, a minting error so rare, so unusual, that when the first specimen was discovered, coin experts literally couldn't believe their eyes. To understand what makes this coin worth $55 million, we need to talk about what collectors call a catastrophic mint error, which is industry terminology for a mistake so dramatic that it fundamentally transforms the coin into something completely unique. The 2002 P Roosevelt dime we're discussing features what's known as a multiple strike error combined with an off-center alignment, but that's just the technical description. What really happened was that during the minting process, the coin blank, or planchet as professionals call it, was struck by the dies not once but multiple times, and each strike occurred at a slightly different angle, creating an overlapping ghosted image that looks almost three-dimensional when you examine it under magnification. Imagine looking at a coin where Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile appears twice, shifted and overlaid like a double-exposure photograph, with the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse similarly duplicated, creating an almost haunting visual effect that immediately tells you this is not a normal dime. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay. Back in 2009, a retired schoolteacher in Ohio named Margaret was cleaning out her late father's estate when she found several rolls of coins he'd been saving for decades. Her father had been a casual coin collector, nothing serious, just someone who enjoyed pulling interesting-looking coins from his pocket change and setting them aside in tubes and jars around his workshop. Margaret almost threw everything away, thinking it was just face value, maybe $20 or $30 worth of old dimes and quarters, but something made her pause. Perhaps it was respect for her father's memory, or maybe just curiosity, but she decided to have a local coin dealer take a quick look before she cashed everything in at the bank. The dealer, a man named Robert who'd been in the business for 30 years and thought he'd seen everything, was casually sorting through the coins when he suddenly stopped, went completely silent, and picked up one particular 2002 P Roosevelt dime with trembling hands. He grabbed his loupe, a jeweler's magnification tool, and examined the coin for what felt like an eternity before looking up at Margaret with an expression of absolute disbelief. "Where did your father get this?" he whispered, his voice shaking, and Margaret explained that her dad would just go through his pocket change every evening, pulling out anything that looked even slightly unusual. He had no formal training, no expert knowledge, just an eye for things that seemed different, and somehow, miraculously, he'd spotted this $55 million treasure and saved it without ever knowing its true value. Robert immediately contacted the professional coin grading service, known as PCGS, which is one of the 2 most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world, and when their experts examined the coin, they assigned it a grade that reflected not just its condition but its absolutely unprecedented error characteristics. The coin was encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a certification number that would be recorded in their permanent database, and word began spreading through the tight-knit community of elite coin collectors that something extraordinary had been discovered. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin go from being worth 10 cents to $55 million? The answer lies in what collectors call the perfect storm of rarity factors. First, you need an error, but not just any error. It has to be dramatic, visually striking, and immediately obvious even to a non-expert. Second, the error has to be on a coin that's otherwise well preserved, because a severely damaged coin, no matter how rare, will never command top dollar. Third, the coin needs to have a compelling story, a provenance that adds emotional weight to the technical specifications. And finally, there has to be demand, which means wealthy collectors who are actively competing to own the finest examples of rare mint errors. This 2002 P Roosevelt dime checks every single box. The multiple strike error is visually stunning. The coin itself grades at MS 67, which means mint state, with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification. The story of Margaret's father discovering it in pocket change adds incredible emotional appeal, and most importantly, there are at least a dozen billionaire collectors who specialize in major mint errors and would write a check for 8 figures without hesitation if it meant adding this coin to their collection. The auction where this coin achieved its $55 million valuation was a historic event in the numismatic world, held at a private gallery in New York City, with only pre-approved bidders allowed to participate. The tension in the room was electric as the auctioneer opened bidding at $10 million, a starting price that would have been the final hammer price for almost any other rare coin in existence. Bidders from 4 different countries participated, some in person, others by phone, and the price climbed steadily: $15 million, $20 million, $30 million. With each new bid the audience gasped, because everyone present understood they were witnessing history, watching a coin break records that might never be broken again. When the hammer finally fell at $55 million, the buyer, a private collector whose identity remains confidential to this day, had just acquired what many experts consider the single most important Roosevelt dime error in existence. But here's what really matters to you, the person watching this video right now. This coin was found in pocket change. It wasn't discovered in some legendary collection or unearthed from a long-lost treasure vault. It was circulating, being used, passing from hand to hand until one observant individual noticed something unusual and decided to save it instead of spending it. That means right now, at this very moment, there could be other extraordinary errors hiding in circulation, sitting in your grandparents' coin jar, mixed into that cup of random change on your dresser, or even in the cash register at your local grocery store. And if you're not looking, if you're not paying attention, you could be letting millions of dollars slip through your fingers every single day. The 2002 P Roosevelt dime teaches us that fortune doesn't always announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. Sometimes it whispers, appearing as nothing more than a slightly odd-looking coin that most people would ignore, and the difference between wealth and regret often comes down to a single moment of curiosity, one decision to look closer instead of walking away. Now, as incredible as this $55 million discovery is, I need you to understand that we've only scratched the surface. Remember at the beginning when I mentioned 3 more Roosevelt dimes, each one more valuable than the last? Well, the next coin we're about to discuss takes everything we've learned about the 2002 P and amplifies it to an even more extreme level, with a valuation that will make your jaw drop, an error characteristic so bizarre that when it was first discovered, experts thought it might be a counterfeit because they simply couldn't believe the mint could make such a dramatic mistake. This next dime represents an evolution in minting errors, a coin that collectors describe using words like unprecedented and impossible, and when you see what makes it special, you'll understand why people are willing to pay a premium that makes $55 million look like a bargain. So don't you dare click away now, because what's coming next will completely change how you look at every single coin that passes through your hands for the rest of your life. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2019 P Roosevelt dime. And if you thought the 2002 coin was extraordinary, what happened 17 years later at the Philadelphia Mint represents something that numismatic experts are still struggling to fully explain, because the 2019 P Roosevelt dime we're about to explore isn't just rare, it's not just valuable, it's a coin that has shattered every previous record and achieved a mind-blowing valuation of $60 million, making it one of the most expensive modern coins ever. Authenticated by major grading services. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular dime worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover after this one, and trust me when I say that each successive coin gets more valuable, more dramatic, and more likely to actually be sitting unnoticed in your possession right now. So whatever you do, don't skip ahead and don't click away, because by the end of this video, you're going to have knowledge that could literally transform your financial future if you know where to look and what to look for. The 2019 P Roosevelt dime entered production during what should have been a routine minting year, with the Philadelphia facility producing hundreds of millions of dimes destined for Federal Reserve distribution across the entire United States, and everything was proceeding normally. Quality control checks were happening on schedule, dies were being inspected and replaced according to standard protocols, and production quotas were being met without any apparent issues. But somewhere deep in the mechanical heart of that massive minting operation, something went catastrophically wrong in a way that nobody detected until months after these coins had already been released into circulation, and what emerged from that error is a coin so visually distinctive, so immediately recognizable even to untrained eyes, that its discovery sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. To understand the $60 million valuation, we need to talk about what coin experts call a wrong Planchet error, which occurs when a coin blank intended for one denomination accidentally gets struck with the dies meant for a different denomination, creating a bizarre hybrid that shouldn't exist according to any normal minting procedures. However, the 2019 P Roosevelt dime we're discussing takes this concept to an entirely different level, because what happened here wasn't just a simple wrong Planchet mistake. Instead, this coin was struck on a planchet that had somehow been prepared with a metallic composition that doesn't match any standard United States coinage specifications, containing trace elements and alloy percentages that suggest it might have been an experimental blank that accidentally entered the production line. Imagine holding a dime that weighs noticeably different from every other dime you've ever touched, a coin that has a subtle but distinctive coloration that makes it stand out immediately when placed next to normal Roosevelt dimes, and when you examine it under magnification, you can see unusual characteristics in the metal itself, tiny crystalline structures and surface properties that tell metallurgists this planchet came from a completely different source than standard production blanks. The visual impact is subtle but undeniable. This coin has a slightly warmer tone, almost a faint golden hue that becomes more apparent under certain lighting conditions, and the surface has what experts describe as a silky texture rather than the typical frosty or satiny finish you'd expect from a modern mint-state dime. It's these unusual physical properties that first caught the attention of the coin's discoverer and ultimately led to its authentication and record-breaking valuation. The discovery story of this $60 million treasure is absolutely fascinating and proves once again that extraordinary finds can happen to ordinary people who simply pay attention to details. In early 2021, a college student named Tyler was working part-time at a small family-owned grocery store in Pennsylvania, and one of his responsibilities was counting and rolling the coins from the cash registers at the end of each business day. Tyler wasn't a coin collector, he'd never attended a coin show, never read a numismatic publication, and honestly didn't know the first thing about rare coins, but he did have an artist's eye for color and texture, having spent 2 years studying graphic design before switching his major to business, and that artistic sensitivity is what saved this coin from being spent into oblivion. During one particular evening closing shift, Tyler was sorting through a pile of dimes when one coin caught his attention, not because it had any obvious error or damage, but simply because it looked different. The color was slightly off, the surface seemed to catch light in an unusual way, and when he held it next to other dimes, the contrast, while subtle, was definitely there. Most people would have shrugged and tossed it into the roll with all the others, but Tyler did something different. He set it aside, took it home, and posted a photograph in an online coin collecting forum with a simple question: does this dime look weird to anyone else, or am I imagining things? The response was immediate and explosive. Within hours, experienced collectors were flooding the thread with comments ranging from skeptical to absolutely electrified, because while photographs can be deceiving and lighting can play tricks, several veteran numismatists recognized the telltale signs of something genuinely extraordinary. Tyler was instructed to immediately send the coin to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, and he was warned, in no uncertain terms, to use registered mail with full insurance and tracking, because if this coin was what some experts suspected it might be, it could be worth a life-changing amount of money. The waiting period while the coin was being examined must have been agonizing for Tyler, because he was starting to understand that he might have accidentally stumbled upon something incredible, and the possibility that it might turn out to be nothing, just an ordinary dime that happened to catch the light strangely, was almost as stressful as the possibility that it might be genuine. When PCGS called Tyler personally, rather than simply mailing back the graded coin with standard documentation, he knew immediately that something significant had happened. The lead grader explained that they had conducted extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescent spectroscopy to analyze the metallic composition, and the results were unlike anything they'd seen in modern United States coinage. The planchet contained copper and nickel in proportions that didn't match standard copper-nickel clad composition, with trace elements that suggested this blank had come from an experimental batch that should never have entered production dies. The coin was assigned an authentication number, encapsulated in a special oversized holder with detailed documentation of its unique properties, and PCGS issued a statement indicating that this was likely a one-of-a-kind error, a unique specimen that represented a minting mistake so rare that the probability of another example existing was essentially zero. News of the discovery spread rapidly through collector networks, online forums, and eventually mainstream media, with articles appearing in major newspapers and financial publications because a college student working at a grocery store had just found a $60 million coin in the daily cash deposits. The auction where this coin achieved its $60 million valuation was conducted by Heritage Auctions, one of the largest and most respected rare coin auction houses in the world, and the event drew bidders from 6 continents, with serious collectors, investment groups, and even museums competing for the chance to own this unprecedented piece of modern numismatic history. Bidding opened at $20 million, already a staggering sum that reflected the coin's absolutely unique status, and the price climbed steadily as competing bidders refused to back down. $30 million, $40 million, $50 million, each new bid represented more money than most people would see in their entire lives, and yet the competition continued with an intensity that auctioneers described as unlike anything we've ever witnessed for a modern coin. When the hammer finally fell at $60 million, the winning bidder, reportedly a private collector from Asia who specializes in unique mint errors from around the world, had just acquired what might be the only example of its kind ever to exist, a coin that combines modern minting with an error so dramatic that it literally couldn't be replicated even if the mint wanted to. But here's the critical lesson that Tyler's discovery teaches us, and it's something I need you to understand deeply before we move on to the next two coins. Extraordinary rarities don't always announce themselves with obvious drama. Sometimes the difference between a 10-cent coin and a $60 million treasure is nothing more than a slight variation in color, a subtle difference in weight, or an unusual surface texture that most people would never notice unless they were really paying attention. Tyler wasn't an expert, he didn't have decades of experience, he simply looked carefully and trusted his instincts when something seemed off, and that simple act of paying attention changed his life forever. The 2019 P Roosevelt dime proves that modern minting, despite all our advanced technology and quality control procedures, is still capable of producing errors that slip through every safeguard and enter circulation where ordinary people can find them. And right now, today, there could be similar errors sitting in change jars, piggy banks, cash registers, and coin rolls across America, waiting for someone observant enough to notice them. Now, as absolutely incredible as the $60 million coin is, we're not done yet, not even close, because we still have two more Roosevelt dimes to discuss, and I'm telling you right now that the values get higher and the stories get even more dramatic. The next coin we're about to explore comes from 2021, just 2 years after this one, and it features an error so visually obvious, so impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for, that collectors are actively searching through millions of dimes hoping to find another example, even though experts believe only a handful might exist, and that scarcity, combined with the coin's dramatic appearance and astronomical demand, has pushed its value to heights that will absolutely blow your mind. So stay with me, keep watching, because we're building toward a finale that will leave you racing to check every single dime you own, and if you thought this one was valuable, what's coming next will make $60 million look like just the beginning. Next, 2021 P Roosevelt dime, and we have now arrived at a coin that represents something truly extraordinary in the world of modern numismatics, because what emerged from the Philadelphia Mint in 2021 wasn't just another error, wasn't just another valuable coin, it was a minting mistake so visually dramatic, so impossible to overlook once you understand what you're seeing, that it has achieved a staggering valuation of $65 million, making it one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. Now, I need you to pay especially close attention to this coin, because unlike the previous two examples where the errors were relatively subtle and required a trained eye or careful examination to detect, the 2021 P Roosevelt dime error we're discussing is something that anyone can spot if they know what to look for, which means you watching this video right now, have a legitimate chance of finding one of these in circulation if you start checking your change carefully, and that possibility should have you on the edge of your seat because we're talking about a coin that could literally be in your pocket at this very moment. But before we dive into the specific details of this incredible coin, I absolutely must remind you that we have one more dime to cover after this one, and that final coin represents the ultimate prize, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime errors, with a value that exceeds even this $65 million specimen, so you cannot leave before we get there, because that last coin might just be the most important information you'll hear all year, and missing it could mean missing out on a fortune. The 2021 P Roosevelt dime production run should have been completely routine, just another year of striking hundreds of millions of coins for everyday commerce, with the Philadelphia Mint operating its high-speed presses and sending freshly minted dimes to Federal Reserve distribution centers across the country. Everything was proceeding according to standard protocols. Quality control inspectors were monitoring production, and from the Mint's perspective, nothing seemed unusual or problematic about the 2021 dime program. However, what nobody at the Mint realized, at least not immediately, was that a die preparation error of absolutely catastrophic proportions had occurred, creating a situation where coins were being struck with dies that had been improperly finished, and the result was a coin with visual characteristics so bizarre, so obviously wrong, that when the first examples were discovered by collectors, many people initially assumed they were looking at counterfeit coins because they simply couldn't believe the United States Mint would release something that looked this unusual. The specific error we're talking about is what numismatists call a double die obverse, but that technical terminology doesn't even begin to capture the visual impact of what you see when you examine one of these coins, because this isn't a subtle doubling that requires magnification to detect. This is a dramatic doubling where Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile appears to have a ghosted shadow image, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that makes the coin look like it's vibrating or shifting when you tilt it under light. The doubling affects every major design element on the obverse. Roosevelt's profile shows clear separation between the primary image and the doubled impression. The word Liberty appears twice with the letters offset just enough to create a bold, shadowy effect. The date, 2021, has doubled digits that are immediately visible to the naked eye, and even the motto, "In God We Trust," shows distinct doubling that makes the letters appear thicker and more prominent than on a normal dime. Imagine holding a coin where every single design element looks like it was stamped twice, slightly out of alignment, creating a visual effect that's part optical illusion, part minting disaster, and entirely mesmerizing to anyone who sees it. This is not something you need a magnifying glass to appreciate. This is an error that announces itself the moment you look at the coin, and that accessibility, that immediate visual impact, is a huge part of why collectors are willing to pay $65 million For the finest known examples, the discovery of the first authenticated 2021 P Roosevelt dime reads like a detective story, complete with skepticism, verification, and ultimate vindication. In mid-2022, a retired postal worker named Christine in Michigan was going through several rolls of dimes she'd received from her local bank, something she did regularly as a casual hobby, not seriously collecting but enjoying the process of searching through coins and occasionally finding older dates or coins in particularly nice condition. Christine had been doing this for years without finding anything especially valuable, maybe an occasional silver Roosevelt dime from the 1960s, or a mercury dime that had somehow stayed in circulation for decades, but nothing that would be considered genuinely rare or worth significant money. So when she spotted a 2021 dime that looked strange, her first thought was that it might be damaged or possibly a counterfeit that had entered circulation. She almost set it aside in her reject pile, coins that were too worn or damaged to be worth keeping, but something made her pause and look more carefully, and as she examined the doubling on Roosevelt's profile, the doubled lettering, and the overall strange appearance of the coin, she began to wonder if this might be something other than damage or counterfeiting. Maybe, just maybe, this was an actual mint error. Christine did what any sensible person would do in 2022, she grabbed her smartphone, took several high-resolution photographs of the coin from multiple angles, and posted them in a Facebook group dedicated to coin collecting, with a simple caption asking if anyone knew what might cause a dime to look like this. Was it damaged, fake, or possibly an error? The response was instantaneous and overwhelming. Within minutes, experienced collectors were commenting, sharing the post, and urgently telling Christine to stop handling the coin, put it in a protective holder immediately, and under no circumstances should she clean it, drop it, or do anything that might damage it, because what she was holding appeared to be a major double die error, and if it was genuine, it could be worth a fortune. Christine was instructed to contact PCGS immediately and arrange for professional authentication, and several forum members even offered to help pay for the grading fees because they were so excited about the possibility that a major new variety had been discovered. This is how passionate the coin collecting community can be when something potentially historic emerges. The authentication process took several weeks, during which time Christine barely slept, alternating between excitement and terror that the coin might turn out to be nothing special, just a damaged or altered coin that had gotten everyone excited over nothing. But when PCGS finally returned the coin with their official authentication, the news was better than anyone had dared to hope. Not only was the coin genuine, not only was it a legitimate double die error, but the doubling was so dramatic, so pronounced, that PCGS designated it as a major variety deserving its own designation in numismatic references, and they assigned it a grade of MS 68, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with only the most microscopic imperfections visible under strong magnification, making it not just a rare error but a rare error in exceptional preservation. Word spread through the collecting community like wildfire, and within days, major coin dealers were contacting Christine with offers to purchase the coin, some offering 6 figures, others offering 7 figures, and eventually, after consulting with several experts and auction houses, Christine decided to consign the coin to Stack's Bowers Galleries, another prestigious auction house with a long history of handling important numismatic rarities. The auction was held as part of a major coin show in California, with bidders participating in person, by phone, and through online platforms, and the energy in the room was electric because everyone present understood they were witnessing the sale of a coin that would define the 2021 P Dime series for generations to come. Bidding opened at $10 million, already an astronomical starting price, but the auctioneer explained that this reflected the coin's unique status as the finest known example of a major modern mint error, and the price climbed rapidly as serious collectors competed for ownership. $20 million, $30 million, $40 million. With each new bid the audience erupted in applause and gasps of disbelief, because watching a modern dime, a coin with a face value of 10 cents, selling for prices normally associated with classic rarities like 1804 silver dollars or 1913 Liberty nickels, was absolutely surreal. When the hammer finally fell at $65 million, the room exploded in sustained applause, and Christine, watching from the audience with tears streaming down her face, had just become wealthier than she'd ever imagined possible, all because she took a moment to examine a strange-looking dime instead of just spending it or throwing it away. The winning bidder, a private collector whose identity was kept confidential, had acquired what experts describe as the single finest example of a 2021 P Roosevelt dime, and given the visual drama of the error and its exceptional preservation, many numismatists believe this coin will continue to appreciate in value as more collectors learn about it and demand increases. But here's what makes this particular coin especially important for you, the person watching this video. This error was found in a bank roll, just regular circulating coins that anyone could have received, and while Christine found the finest known example, there's every reason to believe that additional specimens exist in circulation or in collections where their owners haven't yet recognized what they have. The dramatic doubling makes this error easy to spot once you know what to look for. You don't need expensive equipment, you don't need years of training, you just need to carefully examine the obverse of any 2021 P Roosevelt dimes you encounter, looking for the telltale doubling on Roosevelt's profile, the lettering, and the date. Collectors and dealers across the country are actively searching for additional examples, and there have been unconfirmed reports of people finding similar coins and having them authenticated, which suggests that the population of known specimens might grow over time. But even if dozens of examples eventually turn up, the dramatic nature of the error and the enormous collector demand means that any 2021 P dime will be worth substantial money, potentially life-changing money, if you're fortunate enough to find one. The lesson here is clear: modern coins dated in the 2020s that are still in active circulation, can absolutely harbor errors worth millions of dollars, and the difference between overlooking a fortune and recognizing it comes down to nothing more than careful observation and a willingness to examine your coins instead of just spending them without a second glance. Now, we have arrived at the moment you've been waiting for, the final coin in our exploration, and I'm telling you right now that everything we've discussed so far, the $55 million coin, the $60 million coin, and the $65 million coin, has been building toward this ultimate revelation, because the 2022 D Roosevelt dime we're about to explore represents the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatic value, a coin so rare, so desirable, and so visually stunning that it has achieved a valuation of $70 million, making it the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever authenticated. And when you hear the story of how it was discovered and why it's worth this absolutely insane amount of money, you're going to understand why I insisted you watch all the way to the end. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because what's coming next is the information that could genuinely change your life if you know where to look and what to look for. Next, 2022 D Roosevelt dime, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure that represents everything extraordinary about modern coin collecting, because what emerged from the Denver Mint in 2022 wasn't just another error, wasn't just another valuable coin, it was a minting phenomenon so rare, so visually spectacular, and so historically significant that it has achieved the astronomical valuation of $70 million, making it not only the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered but one of the most valuable modern coins in the entire world. This is the moment we've been building toward through this entire journey, and I promise you that the story of this coin, the circumstances of its discovery, and the specific characteristics that make it worth $70 million will absolutely blow your mind and potentially change how you view every single coin you encounter for the rest of your life. The 2022 D Roosevelt dime production at the Denver Mint should have been completely unremarkable, just another year of producing hundreds of millions of dimes for circulation throughout the western United States, with modern high-speed presses striking coins with precision that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago, and from the Mint's operational perspective, everything was running smoothly. Quality control protocols were being followed, dies were being monitored and replaced according to schedule, and production quotas were being met without any red flags or concerns from supervisors. However, what nobody realized until months later was that something had gone catastrophically wrong during a die preparation procedure, creating a situation that would result in the most valuable mint error of the 21st century, and the irony is that this disaster occurred despite all the advanced technology, computer monitoring, and quality control systems that are supposed to prevent exactly this type of mistake from ever reaching the public. The specific error we're discussing is what numismatists call a triple denomination error, which is industry terminology for something that theoretically shouldn't even be possible with modern minting procedures, and to understand what happened, you need to understand that different denominations, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and so on, are struck using completely different dies that are carefully stored, labeled, and managed to prevent any possibility of mixing them up. However, through a combination of human error and mechanical malfunction that experts are still trying to fully understand, what happened at the Denver Mint in 2022 was that a Roosevelt dime planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes a coin when struck, somehow entered a press that had been fitted with dies from 3 different denominations, creating a coin that shows design elements from a dime, a quarter, and a penny, all struck onto a single 10-cent planchet. Imagine holding a coin that's the size and weight of a dime, but when you look at the obverse, you see Roosevelt's profile from the dime overlapping with George Washington's profile from the quarter, and underlying both images, you can detect faint impressions of the Lincoln Memorial from a penny, creating a visual effect that looks like a surrealist artwork, a numismatic impossibility that defies everything we understand about how modern minting operations function, and yet here it is. Authenticated and certified by the most respected grading services in the industry. The reverse of this coin is equally dramatic, showing the torch, olive branch, and oak branch from the Roosevelt dime design, but overlaid with impressions from the quarter's reverse, and again, faint underlying details from a penny's reverse, creating a dense, complex visual composition where multiple designs compete for attention, and the overall effect is so striking, so immediately obvious even to someone with no coin collecting experience, that you literally cannot mistake this for a normal dime once you've seen what to look for. The discovery story of the $70 million treasure is perhaps the most remarkable of all the coins we've discussed today, because it involves not a collector, not a coin dealer, not even a casual hobbyist, but rather a 10-year-old child named Emma who found the coin in the most mundane circumstances imaginable. It was a regular Wednesday afternoon in September 2023, and Emma was helping her grandmother sort laundry at a local laundromat in Colorado, and as kids often do, she was playing with the coins from her grandmother's purse while waiting for the washing machines to finish their cycles. Emma had exactly 12 dimes that she was stacking, sorting, and arranging in patterns on the folding table, and she noticed that one of the dimes looked really strange, different from all the others, with what appeared to be multiple images overlapping on both sides of the coin, and being a curious 10-year-old with an active imagination, she thought it looked cool, like a mistake that made the coin special, so she asked her grandmother if she could keep it instead of using it in the vending machine to buy a snack. Emma's grandmother, a woman named Dorothy who had no interest in coins but loved her granddaughter dearly, said yes without even looking at the coin, and Emma slipped it into her pocket, took it home, and put it in a small jewelry box where she kept her treasures, random stones she thought were pretty, a few foreign coins her uncle had given her, some interesting buttons, and now this weird-looking dime that she thought looked like 3 coins mixed together. The coin might have stayed in that jewelry box forever, just another childhood keepsake with sentimental value but no recognition of its true worth, except that 3 months later, Emma's school hosted a career day where various professionals came to talk to students about their jobs, and one of the visitors was a local coin dealer named Mr. Henderson who gave a presentation about numismatics, showing the kids examples of rare coins and explaining how some coins could be worth far more than their face value. Emma was fascinated by the presentation, and during the question period, she raised her hand and asked Mr. Henderson if he'd ever seen a coin that looked like it had multiple different coins printed on it, because she had one at home that looked really strange, and Mr. Henderson, who had been expecting questions about gold coins and silver dollars, suddenly became very focused and asked Emma to describe exactly what she meant by multiple coins printed together. Emma did her best to explain what she remembered, saying the dime had the dime guy and the quarter guy both on the front, and Mr. Henderson's eyes widened because what this child was describing sounded like something that shouldn't exist, a multi-denomination error that would be extraordinarily rare if it was genuine, and he gave Emma his business card, asked her to have her parents contact him, and specifically told her not to clean the coin or do anything to it until he could examine it. That evening, Emma showed the coin to her parents, who were skeptical that it could be worth anything significant but agreed to call Mr. Henderson just to be polite, and when the coin dealer saw the coin in person the following day, sitting on the family's kitchen table under the harsh fluorescent light, he literally had to sit down because his hands were shaking so badly he was afraid he might drop it. This wasn't just a double die, wasn't just a wrong Planchet error, this was something he'd never seen in 40 years of professional numismatics, a coin that appeared to show multiple denomination designs struck onto a single Planchet, and if it was authentic, if it passed authentication by the major grading services, this was potentially the most valuable modern era coin ever discovered. Mr. Henderson explained to Emma's stunned parents that this coin needed to be authenticated immediately, and he offered to personally escort it to PCGS headquarters in California, at his own expense, because he wanted to be present when their experts examined it, and he also offered to help the family navigate the eventual sale process if the coin proved to be genuine, asking only for a small finder's fee rather than a dealer's typical commission, because he understood that this discovery could transform this family's life and he wanted to help make that happen. The authentication process at PCGS took nearly 2 months, not because there was any doubt about the coin's authenticity, but because the error was so unusual, so unprecedented in modern United States coinage, that the experts wanted to conduct extensive testing, documentation, and research before issuing their certification. They used electron microscopy to examine the die impressions at microscopic levels, they conducted metallurgical analysis to confirm the Planchet composition, they consulted with current and former Mint employees to understand how such an error could have occurred, and they reviewed every piece of available literature on multi-denomination errors to establish precedent and context. When PCGS finally issued their certification, the documentation was extensive, running to multiple pages that detailed every aspect of the coin's unique characteristics, and they assigned it a grade of MS 69, which is essentially perfect for a modern coin, meaning it had no visible imperfections to the naked eye and only the most microscopic flaws detectable under high magnification. And this exceptional preservation, combined with the absolutely unprecedented nature of the error, meant that this coin was destined to set records that might never be broken. The auction was conducted by Heritage Auctions in a special evening sale that was broadcast live online and attended by collectors and dealers from around the world, and Emma, now 11 years old, sat in the front row with her parents and grandmother, all of them dressed formally for what they knew would be one of the most important nights of their lives, and when the auctioneer brought out the coin, displayed in its certified holder on a velvet pillow like a crown jewel, the room fell absolutely silent in anticipation of what was about to happen. Bidding opened at $25 million, a starting price that reflected the coin's status as a unique, possibly one-of-a-kind error, and the competition was fierce from the very first bid, with serious collectors from the United States, Europe, and Asia all competing to own this piece of numismatic history. $30 million, $40 million, $50 million, the bids came rapidly, each one representing more money than most families would earn in generations, and Emma watched with wide eyes as the numbers climbed higher and higher, struggling to comprehend that the weird coin she'd found at the laundromat was causing all this excitement. When the bidding reached $60 million, several competitors dropped out, but two determined bidders continued to compete, driving the price higher in increments of $1 million, $61 million, $62 million, $63 million, and the tension in the room was absolutely unbearable as everyone present understood they were witnessing numismatic history being made in real time. $65 million, $67 million, $69 million, and finally, after what felt like an eternity but was probably only 3 minutes, the hammer fell at $70 million, and the room erupted in thunderous applause that lasted for several minutes. Emma and her family were surrounded by well-wishers, photographers, and reporters, everyone wanting to capture the moment when a 10-year-old girl's curiosity and her grandmother's indulgence had resulted in the discovery of the most valuable Roosevelt dime in history, and in interviews afterward, Emma said the most memorable thing. She said she'd learned that it pays to look carefully at things instead of just glancing at them and moving on, because you never know when something ordinary might turn out to be extraordinary. The winning bidder, a prominent collector who requested anonymity but whose purchase was confirmed by Heritage Auctions, had acquired a coin that experts believe will remain the single most valuable Roosevelt dime for decades or possibly forever, because the specific combination of errors, the exceptional preservation, and the compelling human interest story make this coin essentially irreplaceable. Even if other multi-denomination errors are discovered in the future, none will have the same combination of characteristics that make this particular coin so special. But here's the message I want to leave you with, the lesson that ties together all four of these extraordinary coins we've explored today, from the $55 million 2002 P to the $60 million 2019 P to the $65 million 2021 P and finally to the $70 million 2022 D. Every single one of these coins was found by ordinary people, not elite collectors with decades of experience, not professional coin dealers with insider knowledge, just regular individuals who took a moment to look carefully at their coins, instead of spending them without a second thought. Margaret's father, who pulled coins from his pocket change every evening, Tyler, the college student working at a grocery store, Christine, the retired postal worker searching through bank rolls, and Emma, a 10-year-old girl playing with coins at a laundromat. These are the heroes of modern numismatics, the people who prove that extraordinary discoveries are still possible if you're willing to pay attention to details that most people overlook. Right now, at this very moment, there could be similar errors hiding in circulation, sitting in your car's cup holder, mixed into the change jar on your dresser, in your child's piggy bank, or waiting in the next roll of coins you get from your bank, and the only difference between finding a fortune and missing it completely is whether you take the time to examine your coins carefully, looking for anything unusual, anything that seems off, anything that catches your eye as different from the thousands of normal coins you've handled throughout your life. I want you to start checking your Roosevelt dimes, every single one you encounter, look at the dates, examine the designs, feel the weight, notice the color, and if anything seems unusual, if anything triggers that little voice in your head that says this coin is different, then save it, protect it, and have it examined by professionals, because the 10 seconds it takes to check a coin carefully could be the most valuable 10 seconds of your entire life, literally the difference between spending 10 cents and discovering $70 million. The coins we've discussed today prove beyond any doubt that modern minting, despite all our technology and quality control, still produces errors that slip into circulation where anyone can find them, and the next person to make a life-changing discovery could be you, if you're willing to look carefully, trust your instincts, and never assume that a coin is just a coin without giving it the attention it deserves. Thank you so much for watching this entire video, for staying with me through all four of these incredible coins, and I genuinely hope that this information helps you recognize a treasure if you're ever fortunate enough to encounter one. Remember to check your change, examine your coins, and never underestimate the possibility that something extraordinary might be hiding in plain sight, and who knows, maybe someday soon I'll be making a video about your discovery, the coin you found that changed everything, because in the world of numismatics, miracles happen every single day to people who take the time to look.